stool lightning round. Each one of you get a minute. If there's anything you want to add or respond to there, Mr. Space.
No, I have to do it.
Okay.
I mean, unless you wouldn't pass on that. Like
Okay. Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. In the survey, there were several issues that were listed out, and you were asked whether to rank them as extremely important, very important, moderately important, not important at all. Of the folks here who did that survey, you had 74 surveys returned. The economy, number one. 51 people here this evening felt that was extremely important. Government corruption was number two, 45. Then there were 10 others that felt it was very important, so 55 total out of the 74. Terrorism ranks high on your minds, 42 out of the 74. Another 14 felt it was very important. Federal spending, healthcare, and education. 39 folks felt that was extremely important. And those three is where some of the bigger numbers came in under very important. Using some of that feedback to proceed, the federal deficit. And I guess I'm not going to take us down the road of numbers or to ask you to look into a crystal ball as to what those numbers might look like down the road, but it is pretty much a fact that federal spending has created some concern. How much of a concern should it be? And how do you plan to reduce the deficit given the economic challenges that still exist? We'll begin with Mr. Sutton.
My approach to the deficit is to put the federal government back in the box it belongs in, called the U.S. Constitution. There are so many, not only agencies, but departments within the federal government that are not even constitutional, that they shouldn't even exist. One example would be the U.S. Department of Education. Until 1979, we didn't even have a Department of Education. It was the states that educated our children, and of course the school districts at the state level. But the federal government became involved. Actually, was involved prior to that, pretty much in the Department of Interior. But when they got really involved, what has happened is, as we send our money to Washington, D.C., for every dollar that we send there in tax money, we get somewhere around 15 cents of that back into our district if we're lucky enough to qualify or to pass whatever test for programs such as the Race to the Top program. If we say the right things, we get our money back. That's our money that we sent. It's our money in the first place. And it stayed at the states, and the people got together at the state level to decide what's best for, as far as educating our children is concerned. Washington, D.C. doesn't know what all the needs of our local communities are. And the 15 cents of our dollar that we sent them is not going to go very far anyway. There's others, the Department of Energy, which it was started in 1977 for the purpose of trying to find out a way that we can get off of our dependency on foreign oil. We were at 30% then. For our money, funding that agency, we're not 70% dependency on foreign oil. It doesn't work. If we get rid of some of these, and there's many more, government agencies and some departments, then not only will our deficit go down, but it would help to shrink the national debt.
Mr. Gibbs?
Well, the deficit spending is really the root problem, and it's like I said, it's creating uncertainty.
uncertainty because we don't know such a future on our economic security, our national security. We borrow money from places like China. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. That's not a good idea. But we're also, we're earning these huge, massive deficits and adding to the debt. That means more of the revenues that do come in are to service that debt. And that means there's less discretionary spending. And, you know, national defense could kind of be discretionary spending. If we don't have the funds to do a certain program we need to do for national defense, it may not be funded adequately. And an analogy of that, you know, we ended the Cold War, we defeated the former Soviet Union, not by firing a shot, we bankrupted them, and we're bankrupting ourselves. So I think it's clear that the federal deficit spending is a huge problem. Now, how do we address that? I think right away what we need to do is what I call domestic discretionary spending, put that right back to fiscal year 08 levels, because it has grown in the last 2 fiscal years double digit each year. So there's plenty of room to take that back to there. We need to go through the budget and do away with duplication. We have too much of our federal government agencies doing some of the same functions. We need to streamline that. We need to do more competitive contract bidding. Open it up to the private sector. We can do that in a lot of areas of government at lower costs. And if the federal government is doing that function now, they can competitive bid that entity, and if they make the bid, they get the bid. And but just try to end the big monopoly, get a little competition there, and that's healthy. Baseline spending, the appropriations bills. We need to break up the appropriations budget bills, and so you vote on separate items and not just one big package, because that just adds to spending. Because what they'll do, they'll put in there to support our troops, then they'll put some other things in there that's boondoggle spending, and it makes it tough for a representative to vote. And baseline spending, we need to cut that out because you start at a certain baseline, and that's a problem because you don't get the cuts that you need. So we need to make the cuts. We got to talk to people as adults and make these cuts, because if we don't, it's going to happen by default.
Mr. Space.
And just to set the record straight, neither party, Democrat or Republican, has clean hands when it comes to the budget deficit and debt that we have. I think we have been financially or fiscally irresponsible for far too long. And as a Blue Dog Democrat, was very proud to be a part of the movement to actually pass statutory pay-as-you-go legislation, so that we now are forced to live within our means. That would not have happened had it not been for the pressure from those Democrat Blue Dogs. Now, I voted against the budget this year because I agree with Bob on some of this stuff. We should have been tightening our belts more than the president wanted us to. But cutting spending is one thing. It's important we do that. But the most important thing we can do to balance our budget or eliminate the deficit is to create jobs. Because when you create jobs, you create revenue. Because when people work, and they work in good jobs, they pay a lot of taxes. That's pretty elementary, but it's true. Now, one of the programs that Mr. Gibbs and I differ very strongly on is the American Recovery Act, sometimes referred to as the stimulus. The American Recovery Act was a lot of money. About a third of it went toward giving middle-class Americans tax breaks. In fact, it was one of the largest tax cuts for the middle class that we've seen in this country for decades. Another third of that was spent on making sure that states like Ohio could balance their budgets. And Mr. Gibbs could tell you how difficult that process would have been had it not been for the help given through the American Recovery Act. And the remaining third was done to build up infrastructure. The idea being that we create short-term jobs in the construction of that infrastructure and long-term jobs because we've now created a more viable economic environment. As an example, look at the broadband monies that are coming right here to East Central and Southeastern Ohio. Over $100 million going to be put to work here at home through the American Recovery Act to bridge this divide that exists between our area and urban and suburban America when it comes to accessing that vital technology. Farmers are the most discriminated people in the country when it comes to access to technology, they're going to be more productive, more competitive, have stronger business models as a result of this program. Not in the near term, not just in the near term, but the long term as well. So balancing this budget and eliminating this deficit more than anything else is reliant upon creating good, sustainable jobs.